Thanks for joining. I'm Cristian Pichardo. I am a senior biocommunication and health economics consultant at Certara. And we have also been understanding better the different perspectives from the 5Ps, from payers, patients, providers, prescribers, and policymakers to understand how they perceive omnichannel stakeholder engagement, how they perceive the value of this approach, and what might seem counterintuitive from an initial perspective, but then it kind of makes sense. So we have distilled that information along with other sources to create this webinar for you. But always feel free to reach me, to reach Sebastian for additional information and also to check how this might relate to your actual challenges in your business and value communication initiatives. So I will stop sharing my webcam so so we can optimize the bandwidth, and we will start with the webinar. So today we will focus on how can we understand better omnichannel stakeholder engagement to unlock the return on investment. We will go through some interesting concepts, and we will finish with some best practices that we have identified with our customers. Sorry, give me a second. Something is happening with my screen. Okay, perfect. Sorry. Okay, we will talk about healthcare. So we wanted to make this diversion before starting to talk about omnichannel engagement, because we have seen that there is a continuous need for engaging with people in healthcare, but we wanted to make a step behind to think about why. Why do we want to engage with different people? Why do we want to engage with payers, with patients, with physicians? Why not going directly to the consumer as in other markets? And we know that we have different distortions of different particularities in the health market that make this urge to reach different audiences and to communicate to people with different languages to try to reduce the impact of these distortions. For example, in healthcare, in opposition to other markets, people pay for something that they cannot see after they only see it after it's delivered. For example, let's think about a new oncology product, and it has a promise. It has a therapeutic benefit promise, but it might not actually materialize for all the patients, or it might be very good for some patients, but the price for the unitary price of the products will be the same, and it's very difficult to engage into value-based negotiations or value-based agreements to try to pay for the outcome that we are getting. Also, healthcare as other particular set of goods is unpredictable. We don't know when we are going to get a disease. We don't know when somebody is going to get a stroke. It's totally unpredictable. We don't know when a pandemic is going to hit. So it's very unpredictable in this way. Also, we have the challenge of having some barriers to entry. Those barriers can be in the form of training. The physicians need a lot of years to get trained. Payers also get an additional training to understand the policies of the institutions, the policies of the insurance plans, and also, for example, a surgeon will need some infrastructure to perform what they have to do. So it's a market that has a lot of barriers to entry. Also, there is an element of trust from the doctor-patient relationship, and also from the manufacturer to prescriber to payer relationships, from the payer to provider. So in this complex system, and there's a need of trust Also because we have a challenge of asymmetrical information. Doctors, providers, they know more about the disease or the treatment pathways than patients. Also, manufacturers know more about the products than, than prescribers or payers. So these situations create a need of different approaches to try to bridge these gaps. And we can see in these distortions that there is a common element to them. That's information and communicating clearly different benefits, different, let's call them value drivers for different audiences. And often these audiences don't share a common background, or they might not be or they might not be aligned in terms of their incentives. So this creates a need for a lot of engagement in the market, not only between manufacturers and the different audiences, but also among them. Uh, and when we engage with these audiences, we want to do something. We we don't go to the market, or we don't go to the field only with materials or with messages to just because we want to do it. We want to create some changes. We want to build a transformation, and that transformation often is related to attitudes, beliefs, or behaviors that build paradigms. So each of these 5 Ps, the patient, patients, providers, payers, prescribers, and policymakers, they have their own mental model of healthcare. They have their own paradigms, and one of the responsibilities of the manufacturers is to clarify additional information, clarify evidence, uh, to try to make these changes in these attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors for the benefit of the patient outcomes and the system sustainability. However, if we think that we are approaching stakeholders to create these changes, then the traditional metrics for that, based on frequency, based on number of impacts, based on cost per impact, might not be the best, because we as the market needs more transformation in these attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. We need to measure our impact based on how can teams, field teams, strategic teams, support teams create these changes in these factors that build paradigms. So that's when the approach for stakeholder engagement is critical. And how was this solved before? Okay, before we had a traditional approach. In that traditional approach, we had field teams, representatives, MSLs, market access managers, key account managers that were in touch with these different stakeholders and these different audiences, and they were going with these messages. But that model kind of exhausted. It reached a limit, and it was because different things. One of them is that with more information, the healthcare industries, they have all faced challenges related to public trust. We know that there have been a lot of news about how things are not being as transparent as they could be. And there is a need to build trust based on evidence, based on like also meeting the commitments that the industry does with the different stakeholders and audiences. So there is that particular need. Also, there have been a lot of constraints about cost, both from governments and payers, that and also inside of the pharmaceutical and medical devices companies, because of these constraints in the market. So that also brings another element to the traditional engagement model, that needs to be able to deliver clinical benefit messages along with economic benefit messages, and that can be extremely complex from a traditional perspective. Also, we have had a lot of new regulatory challenges in terms of requirements, in terms of involving additional surveillance. So that also has been a challenge for a traditional approach where where these field teams went only with a cycle of promotion or with a cycle of messages to try to engage and try to position the products in a particular way. Also, we know that 90% of the revenue from for a high specialty product comes from payers. And with these cost containment measures, with these new value frameworks, there's a need to actually demonstrate the value of drugs to a different set of stakeholders. Now, the physician is a crucial stakeholder, but it's not the only stakeholder. Also, if you think about the traditional model where you have a sales representative outside of the office of a physician waiting him for 45 minutes and then having a quick meeting, the physicians or other stakeholders, payers, policymakers, they can get this information overload. They can get a lot of information. If they go to the internet and do their own research, that will only increase this information overload. And it's very difficult to identify which is relevant from that information, unless we have a structured approach for that. And as we have said, the physician it's an important decision maker, but it's not the only decision maker now. So we need to find a way to personalize content, to personalize message to the different audiences so we can actually create these changes in the attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors along the patient journey. Also, we have seen this rise of technological advancements. We have now digital technologies, we have internet, we have cell phones that are a great tool. We have a lot of tools that we didn't have before when the traditional engagement model was developed. That market doesn't exist anymore. So these new challenges face opportunities, but also we need to speed up to catch these trends. And the globalization of the pharma markets is also an important trend. It's an important pressure because we need to find a way to be efficient, not only in terms of a market, but also in terms of the information that flows between one market to the other. And we have a lot of challenges with that to harmonize the different levels of strategy from a strategic foresight perspective. And at the end, all these trends are happening very fast. So that has a lot of implications. One of them is that it's not only that they have an information overload, but that information can get outdated very fast. And also, stakeholders are becoming extremely specialized. So the generalistic approach might not be the best for all the audiences. So there's a need to meet these needs in the market. And if we think on the other side, we have a human resource. And that human resource, either we decide that we want somebody with a broad set of capabilities that it's going to be able to adapt messages fast to different audiences, that will be able to handle clinical and economic messages at the same time with a lot of fluency, or we decide that we want to make things easier for our teams and also easier for our audiences by leveraging the fact that we are not constrained as we were before by space and time. We can have strategies that can be both remote and, most important, that don't have to be happening at the same time. They don't have to be live interactions. Stakeholders can find places where they can find the relevant information for them, tailored, and that's the idea behind omnichannel approaches. Okay, so what's omnichannel marketing? Omnichannel marketing is an approach, it's a paradigm that puts the stakeholder in the middle and it aims to create a seamless experience in terms of the messages, in terms of the tone, in terms of the content, in terms of the strategic alignment. It expects to be consistent. So this the so it's an approach where the messages that come from medical have to be consistent with the messages that come from marketing, that come from market access, and that's extremely complex. You might know it from your organizations. It's data driven because there is an opportunity to personalize all the contents with the information and insight that we get from the market and that we get from the usage of the different stakeholders is enhanced. In which sense? It's not only that we place the same content that we will show in a face-to-face interaction in a traditional engagement approach in a digital channel. It has to deliver something else, an enhanced experience. It also is efficient from all perspectives. From the field teams, it has to be efficient because it will be able to deliver. It will be able to reduce the cost per impact, and it will be it should be able also to reduce the waiting times for our teams in the field, to reduce the times to align on the content of each face-to-face interaction, and also for the audiences, because instead of having to devote 20 minutes to something that might not offer the quality or the depth of information that they expect or that they need, have a remote asynchronous interaction with our content that can then be followed up in a face-to-face meeting with a clear agenda in a moment that it's better for that stakeholder, even if that comes with a reduction of the frequency of the stakeholder engagements. And it has to be resonating. So these are the six foundations or the six values behind omnichannel marketing. However, when we say that we are following an omnichannel approach, we don't mean that we will involve a lot of channels. We mean a way of working. Let me share that with you. Give me a second. Let me do a quick change in the. Yes, so we are not only saying that we want to to use a lot of channels. We say that we want to use the channels, placing the customer in the center, so he can be aware of the different of the different content in a way that resonates with his learning style, with his time, with his different needs, and based with different channels that might be more relevant for him. Also, something important to assess if we are using a multi-channel approach or an omni-channel approach is based on these different aspects. If our approaches are based on the brand, for example, if we say, let's create a website for the brand fantasy treatments, and let's put a lot of content there that will be static and that will be for all the audiences, and let's build an app that will also have an additional content regarding the brand. That is multi-channel. But if we adapt the content to the different customers, if we gather the insights from them, and if we select ways to work with the different audiences in a way that works for them, if we continuously iterate the content to meet the audience expectations, then we are talking about omnichannel marketing. Okay, and also something important is the key elements of this omnichannel strategy. So it's more focused on virtual care and medicine. However, it's not because it technology has to be the key. It's because we have that tool, and we didn't have that tool 15 years ago. It needs one of the elements is also optimization across channels. The contents have to adapt to the audience, have to adapt to be efficient, and have to adapt to actually leverage this set of tools that we have. It has to be personalized to different audiences. We have to measure the performance, and we have to use the data that we get to make decisions based on that. Okay, so if we see in the center of this, we are not talking about frequency. We are talking about improving the quality of the engagements, even if we have less engagements, that they actually resonate with the audiences and that they can actually help us to create these transformations in the market for our patients in terms of attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors of the different decision makers. And we have seen that there are some benefits in terms of efficiency, also in terms of satisfaction of the stakeholders, in terms of the increase of the commercial opportunities, and also in increasing in revenue. So this approach works for a lot of settings and for a lot of audiences, but it's not a magic bullet. So one of the things that has to be very clear is that it is not about technology. I think that we have experience with our prescribers that they are this person that it's here depicted that goes to a platform and then explores it and is extremely confused because we have focused everything to shift our content to technology, and we have created these websites for payers, for prescribers, but we have not actually identified which are the value drivers for them and which is the best way to layer the content, to show it so it can be intuitive, so it can adapt to the experience that each of the stakeholders is trying to have. So that's very important. It's not only about technology. It's about technology because it will be an enabler, because having these remote asynchronous interactions was not possible if we didn't have technology, but it's not only about it. Also, something interesting, just as we cannot have a baby in 1 month if we have nine mothers, we cannot ensure that more channels will lead to better engagement. It's not linear. It's not linear. Just as we cannot say that a message that's 50% as good as the message of the competitor will yield 50% of revenue, because that's not going to be true. It's the same with Omnichannel. More channels are not always synonymous of better engagement. There is a need to harmonize things so they can work for the strategy and they can work for the audience. Also, it's very interesting because in the traditional engagement model, there was a moment of building rapport, and that was the most personal thing about the interaction. But then the messages were focused on a cycle of promotion. So the messages were about a new trial, a new efficiency, a publication, something, and they were not personalized to the different audiences in the most traditional approach. However, with digital engagement, we can learn about the stakeholders. We can also create some logic, some segments, some algorithms to drive to engage better with them in a more personal way. Even if we are not actually creating a face-to-face interaction, it can get extremely personal. Also, having this automation can improve how we approach humans. And we have seen it. We experience it all the time with the different search engines, that they adapt to us in an automatic way, and that enhances our interaction with the systems. We are humans and we interact with the system, and we actually get better. Also, if let's think about this setting, you have a platform where you have information for the physician, and then the physician or the payer, they can add some feedback, and that feedback can be sent automatically to the field team that will be responsible of that person, of that particular stakeholder in real life. And that person from our field teams can prepare for that meeting and can improve the quality of the interaction, even if the frequency goes down. And we can also show that we have the value of protecting the privacy of our stakeholders by adding some layers that will show that we protect, that we care about this data. Also, not often, it's not often the case, but with a good strategy, omnichannel approaches can lead to cost savings in different ways. One of them is commonality, because you can reduce some elements of your materials to be fit for different audiences. Also, because you can avoid traveling expenses, you can avoid having this additional frequency if you improve the quality of the actual face-to-face engagements. Because frequency is not always a synonym of effectiveness in terms of field teams, and that's particularly not the case in this new market where everything is going to be more value driven. And however, something important to take into consideration is that if we have more data, if audiences have more data, that might lead to these decision traps where more information doesn't lead to faster decisions. So that's very important in terms of the design of this continuum between the digital world, the asynchronous world, and the face-to-face live interactions. Okay. So what we have identified from our customers are these different best practices. One of them is to identify and map the customer journey. That's key. The second one is to integrate the data from the organizations to the audiences, and from the audiences to the organization to drive change management, to personalize the content according to segments, to optimize the content based on the learnings, to create a continuous improvement process, to synchronize all the information between the channels. So there is this continuum, this consistency that seems very transparent for the audiences, to also devote some time to train and educate the stakeholders in this. We often assume that they will be able to open a website, that it will be very intuitive, but most of the time, as with any tool, this needs some training, and that is one of the best practices that we have identified, to use technology. Technology will free us from the tyranny of time and space, in terms of it will free us from this, from only being able to engage in a live and face-to-face interaction with our stakeholders. Also, if we can automate this, we can ensure regulatory compliance in a better way, because we don't we've reduced the risk of showing of label data, of not transmitting the messages according to their intended uses. So it also helps with that. It's also very important to measure the impact, to have a strategy to build these tools and to keep them alive, and to keep them updated, and to keep them relevant for the audiences. This needs a lot of cross-functional collaboration, because we need this consistency, and this needs also to build capabilities inside of organizations to deliver a good customer experience for the different stakeholders. So we can turn our stakeholder from this frustrated person into this person that it's actually a driver of change inside of the system. And just a message from Base Case. Base Case can help you, can help all value communicators at different levels of the organizations to adapt to these changes, to understand different archetypes, to create different segments, to layer the content for different audiences based on this, on the factors that we have mentioned in this webinar. we can enhance the experience of the traditional materials that are this value story decks and these Excels for supporting evidence or reports, and we can layer the content in a different way so it can actually help with to meet these challenges in omnichannel engagement. And just a quick reminder, base case is based on three main components. One of them is the ability to integrate with data, both from a spreadsheet or from different data sources, and also to integrate the data that comes from base case as insights, feedback, different information, a service, and to send it to a different tool or to send it to a report that can be used for strategic purposes. You can also build linear stories based on non-linear content, just as we have done in this presentation. And we also have the distribution platform, so you ensure that your content reaches the people that you want to reach in the way that you want to reach them. And while we wait for your questions, I will just put the PDF base case, and then we will be ready for the Q&A session.
All right.
All right.
I think the video starts over again, so you
Yes.
can pause, Christian. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Great input. And by the way, the whole presentation was built in base case.
Yes.
That is, I think, worth mentioning. Now let's go to the questions. We already have a few questions from the audience. And yeah, please submit your questions into the chat. Christian will address them, and I will read them out as they came in. And the first question to Christian is, do the team have a sense of the number channels needed to drive desired behavior? That question came when you were talking about that more channels doesn't necessarily mean more impact. So I think the question is about...
That's a wonderful question. In what we have experienced, not from our customers, but from payers and from prescribers, is that they prefer something simple, where they can access in their houses in an easy way, and that will have a lot of information in a very easy way to navigate it. They don't like traditional websites where they have this very long display of information, or the traditional reports of the most important outcomes of a trial. They like to have different levels of information in a very organized way. And and one of the things that resonates with this question that I have heard from payers is that more important than the number of channels is the story that you are telling with the channels, and also that they feel that nobody maps their daily activities to understand which are the right challenges for them. Maybe after being in the computer for a whole day, they don't really want to be in the computer again. Maybe they want to use the time that they where they commute to have a quick information about a particular new trial or a particular cost effectiveness analysis in a mobile way or in a tablet. So they feel that at the center of this decision about the number of channels, it's important to assess their customer journey, their learning journey, and to use tools as a day in the life or this kind of tools where you map what happens to an archetypical stakeholder and you identify which is the right moment and which is the right channel to approach them. What we have seen from customers is that the most effective ones are the ones that have that introduce channels in an organized way. So they, for example, they build a tool and they iterate the content until it gets to a good speed, and they create a process to keep it tidy. And they just use the website for like brand positioning, but not to actually deliver information to the stakeholders. So that's what the mix of channels that we have found that works better for some of our customers.
Okay, great. Thanks for that answer, Christian. Let's take that one as the next question. Is spreadsheet data linked to a live presentation that will update in real time when new information comes to the system?
Yes, in fact, that's the case. So if you want, for example, to add all the logic that you would expect from an Excel file, you can do it. In fact, one of the things that's very interesting about the Basics platform is that most of the objects have their own data feed. So you can, for example, connect the objects with something in the backend, so they can change the messages according to the particular setting. So it creates a seamless experience for the user, but you're actually getting a personalized message or a personalized experience, and that goes also for the models. If you can include your inputs, the inputs of the account, that creates a personalized experience without having to disrupt the flow of the story.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And let's take that one as a third question. Is there an approval workflow function in place for content deployment?
Yes, as we know, we have heard from customers, regulatory compliance is key. So we have a plugin, an add-on that helps with content approval, but we also are aware that there are some major players in this space. So we can generate versions in PDFs that can have all the information with all the references that will be needed for those approval systems. And we can, of course, help you to build them. We have a customer success team that can provide support during that process.
Excellent, thanks. I don't see any more questions. I think we are at the end of the webinar. Again, thank you, Christian, for the great presentation, for the great input. Thank you for joining us today. Whenever you have a question, please feel free to reach out to Christian or to myself. We will send you the video after it has been processed. And with that, I wish you a nice day. Take care, and hope to see you soon in one of our next webinars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.